Ladies and gentlemen, this is Intervlog. I said this is Intervlog in Burkina Faso. A new chapter of national defense and security has been unfolding under the leadership of President Captain Ibrahim Traoré. The country, long burdened by militant attack, has seen a marked shift in momentum. Through a combination of strategic military acquisitions, disciplined armed forces, and the effective use of advanced technologies such as Bayraktar drones, Burkina Faso has consistently demonstrated resilience and determination in reclaiming its security landscape. The story of this transformation is not one of rhetoric alone, but of actions carried out with precision on the ground. The most recent and decisive example came on Wednesday, the 20th of August, 2025, near Futuri in the country's east, where Burkina Faso combat forces decisively thwarted a major militant assault. At dawn, an estimated 600 militants launched a coordinated offensive, aiming to destabilize the region and reassert control. But thanks to signals and live intelligence from the Bayraktar drone's advanced camera system, the Burkina Faso forces were alerted early. What followed was not merely a defensive stand, but a counter-operation that displayed both discipline and efficiency. In a matter of hours, over 100 militants were eliminated, and among them two of the most influential figures in the group. Abu Suleiman, known as a key logistician, and Abdul Badre, responsible for indoctrination. The removal of these figures dealt a critical blow to the enemy's command chain, and with their leadership in disarray, the remaining fighters retreated in confusion. Significant caches of weapons were seized, including motorcycles, machine guns, and ammunition. The victory at Futuri was decisive, but it was not isolated. Since Captain Traoré assumed leadership, the Burkina Faso armed forces have accumulated a record of repeated victories across the country. The strategy has been clear: modernize the military with tools that are both practical and effective, train forces to use them with precision, and maintain discipline in execution. Unlike in earlier years, when militant groups often moved freely through rural areas, today, surveillance drones provide continuous eyes in the sky. Armored vehicles ensure that troops can move securely and respond rapidly. This shift has created a new balance of power, one where the initiative no longer rests with the militants, but with the national army. The Bayraktar drones, purchased from Turkey, stand out as a centerpiece of this transformation. Known for their advanced cameras and extended flight capabilities, they provide real-time intelligence that changes the tempo of conflict. Before drones, militants relied on speed, surprise, and knowledge of terrain. Now, their movements are tracked before they can strike. As one observer remarked, it is like the difference between walking blindfolded through a storm and walking with a clear map in daylight. With these drones in the sky, militants find fewer safe havens, fewer hidden paths, and fewer opportunities to regroup. Burkina Faso's armored vehicles, sourced from a combination of trusted partners and international suppliers, have also proven indispensable. These vehicles offer both mobility and protection, allowing forces to maneuver swiftly even in hostile terrain. They have transformed operations from reactive responses into proactive campaigns. For the people living in region, the presence of these vehicles on patrol has come to symbolize a return to normalcy. Markets reopen, schools resume, and farmers return to their fields. Security is not measured solely in battles won, but in lives restored to ordinary rhythm. The victory at Futuri, however, carries a weight that extends beyond Burkina Faso's borders. In eliminating over 100 militants and dismantling their leadership, Burkina Faso forces have set an example of what disciplined planning and modern technology can achieve. Parables from African wisdom remind us that a tree with deep roots fears no storm. In this case, Burkina Faso's roots are the discipline of its armed forces and the vision of leadership that invests in tools suited for today's challenges. Other nations across Africa, also struggling with militancy, can draw lessons from this model. The lesson is not only about hardware, but about strategy, how to combine technology, training, and local knowledge into a coherent force. Since Ibrahim Traoré came to power, Burkina Faso's security forces have logged dozens of successful counteroffensives. In region after region, attempted assaults have been met with swift responses. Drones provide intelligence, armored convoys provide protection, and coordinated ground forces deliver results. The contrast with the years before is stark, where once militants moved with relative impunity, now they face constant disruption. It is not a claim made lightly. It is evidenced in villages that are safer, in roads that are reopened, and in communities that speak of relief. Returning to the events of August 20th, the elimination of Abu Suleiman and Abdul Badre marked a turning point. Suleiman, as a logistician, was the mind behind supply routes and material flow. Without him, the ability of militants to coordinate large operations diminishes. Abdul Badre, responsible for indoctrination, represented the ideological engine of the group. His absence weakens recruitment and internal cohesion. Leaders can be replaced, but their absence leaves voids that take time to fill. In the meantime, opportunities for peace expand. The capture of motorcycles and weapons after the clash demonstrated the practical effectiveness of the operation. Every motorcycle removed from militant hands is one less rapid strike they can launch. Every machine gun seized is one less weapon turned against civilians. Step by step, such seizures weaken the capacity for future assaults. Parables remind us that a river is emptied by removing its streams. Each loss for the militants, whether in leaders or weapons, narrows their future options. For the Burkina Faso forces near Futuri, their performance stands out as among the most effective in recent memory. Facing a force of 600, they maintained discipline, leveraged technology, and prevailed. Neutral observers note the significance. A numerically smaller force, using drones and armored support, overcame a larger adversary with fewer casualties on their side. This is the model of modern asymmetric defense. Quality of planning and technology outweighing quantity of fighters. The broader impact on Burkina Faso's security is already evident. Areas are stabilizing. Communities are beginning to return. Farmers speak of tending their fields with less fear. Merchants transport goods with greater confidence. Security is not perfect, but the trajectory is unmistakably upward. And in a region where insecurity has long cast shadows, even incremental gains carry profound meaning. For Africa more broadly, Burkina Faso's example invites reflection. Many nations face similar threats, from militants in the Sahel to armed groups elsewhere on the continent. The lesson is not that drones alone bring security, but that drones, integrated with disciplined ground forces and clear leadership, can shift the balance. It is a reminder that in the modern era, information is as vital as ammunition. Seeing before being seen, striking before being struck. These are the advantages that technology affords. In parable, the bird that flies highest sees the storm before others. In Burkina Faso's case, the Bayraktar drones are those high-flying birds. They provide the foresight that saves lives on the ground. Other African leaders, observing these results, would do well to consider similar investments, not merely in equipment, but in the training and organization needed to make that equipment effective. Technology unused is like a book unread. It holds potential, but only action unlocks its value. The story of Burkina Faso's armed forces since Traoré's rise is therefore not a tale of chance, but of deliberate choices. Choices to prioritize security, to allocate resources toward effective tools, and to trust in the capacity of national forces. Each victory reinforces the confidence of the population and strengthens the resolve of soldiers. Step by step, the narrative of vulnerability is replaced with a narrative of resilience. In recounting the events near Futuri, it is important to appreciate the complexity of what unfolded. An offensive of 600 militants is not a minor skirmish, but a calculated attempt to overwhelm defenses. Such attacks are designed to spread fear, to project strength, and to disrupt the fragile balance of daily life. Yet in this instance, the attack did not achieve its objectives. Instead, it highlighted the capacity of Burkina Faso's forces to meet challenges head-on. The key difference lay in intelligence. While militants moved in large numbers, they were already under observation by the Bayraktar Akıncı drone circling high above. Its advanced camera systems captured their formation, their direction of travel, and their intended targets. This information, relayed in real time, gave Burkina Faso commanders the clarity needed to prepare a counter-operation. In modern security, information is often the decisive factor. One parable reminds us that the farmer who sees the locusts early saves his harvest. In the same way, early detection of the militants allowed for a response that was organized rather than improvised. Forces were deployed strategically. Armored units moved into place, and support fire was coordinated with precision. By the time the militants reached their intended point of assault, they were already walking into a trap. The clash that followed was intense, but the outcome became clear as the hours passed. Over 100 militants were eliminated, including the two high-value leaders whose presence had emboldened the attack. Abo Soliman, known for designing supply routes and ensuring that weapons and fuel reached militant units, was more than a logistician. He was the thread stitching their campaigns together. His elimination severed those threads, leaving many cells unable to coordinate effectively. Abdul Badra, by contrast, represented the ideological foundation. Through indoctrination, he had motivated young recruits, sustaining morale even when battles were lost. With him gone, the ideological drive weakens and the group's cohesion falters. Removing these two figures in the same operation delivered not only a tactical victory, but also a psychological blow. The militants' retreat after the confrontation underscored the disruption. Retreats are often chaotic, but in this case they were marked by confusion. Without central command, units broke apart, leaving behind weapons, motorcycles, and supplies. Burkina Faso forces seized these, cataloging machine guns, ammunition belts, and transport vehicles. Each seizure was more than material gain. It was denial of resources to the enemy. For every motorcycle taken, mobility is reduced. For every weapon captured, the ability to regroup is diminished. Observers of this battle have compared it to a scale shifting. On one side, 600 militants armed with determination and numbers. On the other, a smaller force, but one equipped with intelligence, armored protection, and precision drones. The outcome was not decided by numbers, but by preparation. It is a lesson repeated throughout history. A disciplined, well-equipped force can defeat a larger adversary. Parables remind us that the small axe, if sharp, can cut the largest tree. Burkina Faso's forces, sharpened by training and guided by advanced tools, proved sharper than the larger militant force they faced. This is not the first time such dynamics have played out since Ibrahim Traoré assumed power. Across Burkina Faso, from the Sahelian north to the eastern provinces, similar confrontations have ended in victories for the national forces. Repeatedly, militants have attempted to stage large offensives, only to be intercepted. Each time, drones have played a pivotal role, identifying gatherings, tracing movements, and guiding responses. The pattern is now evident. The era of surprise attacks is giving way to an era of surveillance-informed defense. Civilians in affected regions have begun to notice the difference. In villages where militants once arrived without warning, residents now speak of greater confidence. We hear the drones above, and we know we are not alone, one villager remarked in a neutral observer's report. The presence of technology is not merely about warfare, it is about reassurance. It tells communities that their government is investing in their safety, that their plight is not ignored. The psychological effect of knowing the skies are watched is as significant as the physical protection it affords. The acquisition of Bayraktar drones was a deliberate choice by Traoré's government, sourced from Turkey, a nation known for producing effective unmanned aerial vehicles. Alongside drones, armored vehicles from international partners, some sourced from Eastern European manufacturers, others from regional collaborations, have filled out the fleet. The approach has not been to rely on a single supplier, but to diversify, ensuring flexibility and resilience in supply chains. This strategy reflects a broader philosophy. Security cannot depend on one path alone. Just as a river draws strength from many tributaries, Burkina Faso's defense draws strength from multiple sources of equipment and alliances. The effectiveness of these tools lies not only in their hardware, but in the training provided to Burkinabe soldiers. Drones alone cannot secure a nation. It is the operators, analysts, and commanders who translate images into actions. Since acquiring these technologies, specialized units have been trained to interpret drone data, to coordinate with ground troops, and to adapt tactics in real time. This integration has turned the Burkinabe army into a more agile force, capable of matching modern challenges. Security analysts point out that since the introduction of drones and armored vehicles, the number of successful militant offensives has declined markedly. Where militants once held sway in large rural zones, now their movements are constrained. It is not to say the threat is gone, but their capacity for large-scale coordinated assaults has been eroded. This represents a structural shift in Burkina Faso's security landscape. For the families of soldiers, victories such as the one near Futuri carry deep meaning. They see in these battles not only the defense of territory, but the preservation of national dignity. For years, militants attempted to impose that they held power over communities. Each elimination of a militant leader, each seizure of weapons, reverses that narrative. It reaffirms that authority rests with the state and that the Burkinabe forces stand ready. The Futuri victory, in particular, has been described as one of the most significant of recent years. Not only for the scale of militants defeated, but for the precision with which it was executed. Analysts compare it to earlier battles where the lack of timely intelligence. Here, the combination of foresight and disciplined execution reduced losses and maximized effectiveness. It stands as an operational benchmark, demonstrating the maturity of Burkina Faso's security strategy. This turning point also carries lessons for the wider Sahel region. In neighboring countries, where militants still operate with varying levels of impunity, the contrast is instructive. Burkina Faso's approach, investing in drones, armored vehicles, and disciplined forces, offers a model that could be adapted elsewhere. It is not about copying equipment purchases blindly, but about recognizing the role of technology in modern asymmetric warfare. African leaders observing this may see that sovereignty in security requires not only numbers of soldiers, but also the tools to empower them. Parables again illuminate the lesson. The hunter who enters the forest with only a spear fears the lion, but the hunter with both spear and torch commands the night. In this analogy, traditional forces are the spear, while drones and armored vehicles are the torch. Together, they allow the hunter to face the lion not with fear, but with confidence. The militants may be many, but with technology and discipline, their advantage diminishes. As Burkina Faso's security trajectory continues to evolve, the broader implications of these repeated victories cannot be overlooked. The elimination of more than 100 militants near Futuri was a milestone, but it was not an isolated event. It represents the cumulative effect of a strategy that has been consistently applied since President Ibrahim Traoré assumed leadership. By choosing to invest in drones, armored vehicles, and disciplined training, he reshaped the balance of power. The result has been a country that, while still facing, now meets them with confidence rather than uncertainty. The security situation across Burkina Faso has measurably improved. Travel routes that were once unsafe are increasingly monitored and reopened. Agricultural activity is seeing renewed vigor as farmers feel secure enough to work their fields. Markets in towns that had been shuttered are regaining life. These are not abstract victories. They are lived experiences of ordinary people who can now pursue livelihoods. Security, after all, is not defined solely by the absence of conflict, but by the presence of stability in daily life. The success of Burkina Faso's forces highlights an essential truth. Modern security challenges require modern solutions. Militants once relied on the vastness of terrain, on the ability to strike and disappear. Drones have stripped away that advantage, making concealment increasingly difficult. Armored vehicles have denied militants the ability to overwhelm vulnerable units. And, above all, discipline and coordination have ensured that technology is not wasted but harnessed to its full potential. It is here that other African leaders may find lessons of value. Across the continent, nations are grappling with militant groups, insurgencies. Traditional approaches, deploying larger numbers of soldiers without modern surveillance, have often produced limited results. Burkina Faso's example demonstrates that success is not a matter of numbers alone. It is about equipping forces with the right tools and ensuring those tools are integrated into strategy. A proverb says, "The fisherman who casts his net blindly may catch a few fish, but the one who watches the waters first will fill his boat." In security, drones are the eyes watching the waters. They guide the net. They ensure that every deployment of troops is purposeful, every strike timely. Without them, forces may expend effort without result. With them, even limited resources can achieve decisive outcomes. The victory at Futuri, where 600 militants were repelled, is a clear illustration of this principle. The Bayraktar drone provided the foresight. Armored vehicles ensured safe mobility. Ground forces, trained and disciplined, executed the plan with precision. The result was not simply a battle won, but a demonstration of how modern defense should be conducted. For the militants, the elimination of leaders such as Abu Suleiman and Abdul Badre represents more than battlefield losses. It disrupts their ability to recruit, to supply, and to sustain operations. For communities, it symbolizes the return of state authority. For neighboring countries, it signals that militants are not an unstoppable force, but one that can be contained and dismantled with the right approach. There is also a symbolic element to these victories. In the past, militants often projected an image of inevitability, suggesting that their presence was permanent. Every defeat they suffer, every cache of weapons seized, erodes that image. Each time they retreat, they demonstrate to local populations that their power has limits. As parables teach, the drum that makes the loudest sound is often the hollow one. Militants may boast, but repeated defeats reveal their fragility. Burkina Faso's forces at Futuri displayed qualities that merit recognition. Facing overwhelming numbers, they did not falter. They relied on intelligence, on training, and on trust in their equipment. Neutral observers have described them as among the most effective forces currently operating in the Sahel. Their actions serve as a benchmark, not only for their own nation, but for others confronting similar. To call them the best seen in such conditions is not exaggeration, but acknowledgement of their effectiveness. Looking forward, the challenge will be sustaining these gains. Militants adapt, and they will continue seeking vulnerabilities. Yet, Burkina Faso has shown that adaptation is possible on both sides. Just as militants adjust tactics, so too can national forces refine their strategies. This is the end of our program today. See you on Intervlog same time tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe to my channel and press the bell icon to get new video updates. Thank you for watching Intervlog.